Hi guys, thanks for listening to And Now. If you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a 5-star review in podcast. It really, really helps. Thanks.
Honeymoon Studios. Powered by
People.
Hello Nicholas.
Hello, Rob.
And now? How you doing?
I actually am doing very well.
Yeah, me too. Tell me why you're doing well.
I don't know. There's no supporting evidence for why I should be what I am.
That's good. I mean, I'll take that. I'll take it. I'll accept
To be
it.
honest, I think also it's got something to do with having had a nap. I feel a good afternoon nap, even if it's 20 minutes long, can change one's outlook on life quite profoundly. Especially, the night before, having heard lockdown's going to be extended for another 14 days.
Another 14 days. Can I be honest with you? I was quite happy. I don't know if that's weird, and maybe I'll just make people angry, but I was like, yeah, let's go. Not even, certainly from a health, a kind of national health perspective, but also, I don't know, I'm getting into this thing. I'm feeling like we're being forced into a space where we're being forced to be innovative, and I think there's amazing lessons to be learned from this, and I'm only just starting to get a sense of them.
Rob.
Yeah?
Sorry to interrupt. You said, could you be honest with me? I don't feel like you're being entirely honest.
Okay.
Because yes, I hear what you're saying. There's an opportunity in this. Great. But if I'm asked to make one more fucking mask video, which I already have been asked to.
Yes.
And it's going to happen. It's another 14 days of having to make mask videos. What else have you been asked to do?
Lots of lockdown movies. I have this friend of mine, an actress who's shooting a lockdown movie. Like every day there's a new request for someone who's making a music video of like an uplifting song that's going to help us get through the lockdown, where you have to dance on your own in the lounge. And
well, fortunately, Donovan Copley's new song is about a father and a son. So you got to obviously decline that.
I dodged that bullet. I'm very, very grateful. Very grateful. Yeah, lots of it. Look, let us not be mistaken. There's a lot of irritating shit happening, but I'm also really, really getting into some aspects of this. And I don't know, like the 8 p.m. thing where everyone comes out and makes noise from their balcony. And I know Derek last week was saying, these people on the front line, what they actually need is resources, not for us to be shouting on the balcony. But it's like the wave of goodwill has finally reached Fishhook, and the noise was overwhelming here tonight, and it made me quite emotional. And my daughter is so into it, and there's something about that is, and she like totally understands it. She's like, we're thanking these people out there who are doing the real jobs to like keep this country going. And it's taught her something about community that nothing else would have. And she's completely bought into it. And there's something about how we are woven together as a nation that she gets on a very, very fundamental level now, which I think is incredible.
That's beautiful. I try to create that at home tonight.
Yeah.
Because we have older Jewish neighbors, and it's Shabbat. Tonight is the Jewish Sabbath. And we are recording this. We are recording this on the Jewish Sabbath, which
is that allowed?
Oh, don't tell Rabbi Green. But basically, I said to my wife, wouldn't it be cool? The neighbors, they're on their own. They're isolated. They haven't been able to see their kids or grandkids. Let's go up onto our roof. There's a ladder to the roof, and we'll go and sing Shabbat songs. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom, Malachei. And, the blessing on the wine and the bread and everything, and we'll light the candles up there. They can see us from their garden. And isn't that a beautiful thing, Rob?
It's beautiful. Is that the whole story? Is that everything?
Apart from the part where my wife said no.
You see, that's what I was waiting for. I knew there was a caveat to that beautiful story of yours, Nicholas. Hey, you went out. You went out to the shops. I left the house for the first time.
Yep.
Was it exciting?
It was bizarre. I had to remember how to drive the car. I don't think I've left home for about 2.5 weeks.
You know
Maybe
what?
3.
You know what, Nick? I think we should play the voice note that you made, because you are now like a professional podcaster. You record shit wherever you go. Once you did. Okay, so let's play. You got 2 voice notes. Let's play them here. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nicholas Rabinovitz out in the real world.
It's going to be very boring, Rob.
No, it was exciting. I was thrilled to hear it. Here we go.
Right. It's the sound of me forgetting to put my seatbelt on because it's so long since I've driven a car. I certainly haven't left since lockdown, and I certainly hadn't left before that for a while. So I don't know. I don't know how long I've been at home for. I've got to drive to the pharmacy to get some medication for my mum. My wife's been doing all the shopping. It feels so weird, Rob. It feels bizarre. You see people on the street. Are you an essential worker? Where are you going? There's a dog. What the hell are you doing there? Very peculiar indeed. So that was my trip. I just getting back in my car. Went to the pharmacy. On my mask, I look like Val Bartman with my cauliflower ears. And I handed them cash, and then I realized you're not supposed to hand cash. And then the woman touched my hand with her hand. She put some cents into my hand. And then the other woman said, "No, you mustn't listen to all this. Who said that? What must I hand sanitize every one of this money and this papers that we give you? No, man. No."
Incredible. I love how you even spoke to me as if I were there with you. You were so in the zone.
Did I?
Yeah, at one point you said something, "I'm here." What was it? "I'm here, Rob." It was like I was...
Yes.
You were talking to me.
Yes.
Also, I love the...
I was talking to you.
You were. And I love the Val Bartman reference as well. That is a particularly dated reference.
Yeah, because it makes my ears look like this, because it's too small. The mask is too small for me. But I've got to wear it because I protect you and you protect me. And together...
everyone's protected. Just keep protecting yourself. Just protect.
You know what's also protecting people out there?
What?
Who don't have kids? The videos I'm making in my house with my screaming toddler.
Really?
Yeah, it's better than any contraceptive ads you can find on TV.
I believe you. I've met your toddler.
Did I explain to you what happened yesterday before my online show?
You mentioned it in a call we had.
I was about to go online, and then I was doing a radio interview with this radio station and that radio station like this, and both calls were dropping because Cell C, I don't know what is wrong with you, Cell C. And then the other child came in, and he was doing this with my lights. I don't know if you can hear that noise, with the strobe flicking like this, while the 3-year-old had a tantrum because I had to take Peppa Pig away from her.
Peppa Pig's a gateway drug. I think you made the right choice.
We've had Passover. Do you know anything about Passover?
No.
Okay, well, traditionally you have a ceremony which lasts up to, well, it's a long thing, so the online version is much better. We did that with a family from around the world. And it's 5 hours shorter than the face-to-face version, but it was still 4 hours long. We had to do 4 different Zoom meetings.
Because this family is literally all around the world. Everyone's in different places.
No, because the meeting runs out after an hour. We don't have Zoom Pro.
You're a pleb, basically, is what. You're a Zoom pleb.
What you have to do is you take a drop of wine out of the cup and you do the 10 plagues. So you do the 10 plagues. And that morning, we'd had our own plague in the kitchen. Did I tell you about the maggots?
No.
I left spaghetti bolognese. I put spaghetti bolognese into the compost bucket because I've decided that if I add bokashi to the meat, then it'll decompose for the earthworm. So I did that. But then I forgot it there. And then soldier flies laid their eggs. And the larvae are called maggots. And the maggots overnight were like, do you remember the White Walkers from Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
You know, they just keep going. Well, through the night, they just did that. And I woke up in the morning, I was getting coffee in my socks and I felt things. And I looked down and there were maggots in the kitchen.
You squished them in your socks.
They were everywhere. They were in the dining room, the lounge, under the carpets, under the couches. I was vacuuming up maggots. That was our first plague. And then was the plague of plagues out there. It was very real. Passover was very visceral, Rob. I believe that's the word.
That's
visceral.
A great word. That is a great word. So, I mean, so then Passover has like particular resonance right now in terms of this pandemic we're experiencing. That is a beautiful like little tie-in you've made there, like a religio-cultural tie-in. I thank you for that.
No, you're welcome.
It's really puts things into perspective.
And listen, the real message of Passover is a celebration of freedom. So we are confined and we are experiencing a curtailment of our freedom in many ways. But as Viktor Frankl said, the one true freedom is the ability to choose your attitude amidst whatever circumstances you find yourself in, even a concentration camp.
Well, there you go.
A lot of people are recalling a time gone by, and that's maybe because they got time on their hands. But you have been doing this online, recalling romantic. Did we speak about this in the last episode?
We mentioned it, that I found the format Story Time with Rob, where as a show, and connecting with the viewers in a way that they get to share their stories, and it kind of came out of that space. And because of this lockdown, we do have this incredible time to reflect, to reminisce, to allow for nostalgia, to I suppose come into the space and time.
I want to know what one of those, because I missed that. What was the sort of most awkward, or was it painful? I can't remember how you describe these love stories gone wrong.
So the first episode of the theme was love, unrequited and awkward.
Unrequited.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. Oh my God! I ended up telling a story that I won't repeat here, but it was pretty graphic. About this girl that I was pursuing, and she invited me to a party in her like loft apartment in the middle of Joburg CBD, and I was like, I'm in there. And as I drove over Nelson Mandela Bridge, I had a shiver of foreboding in my bowels, and I suffer from IBS, and so from that moment there was a.
You do still suffer from irritable bowel syndrome.
I do indeed. So there was a countdown that happened at that moment, and I got lost. I eventually found the building. I had to drive 3 levels down to get into a lift that went up 10 floors for a 13-floor building, and then had to walk up 3 flights of stairs. And that's all I'm going to tell you about that story for now, Nicholas.
No, Rob.
Yeah.
Why?
It took a lot to share that story already, and it was on a in a format that would only last for 24 hours. So it's gone now. It's already gone. This, if I told that story now, here.
Okay. Would you like me to share? If you won't share, do you want me to share?
Sure, share.
I'm going to tell you the story of my unrequited love for Karen Nudelman.
And this is what
Have I told you the story before?
No, tell me.
Right. Now, obviously I've changed her name slightly to protect her identity. It's actually Karen with a C, not a K. But that's not the point of the story. The point is, I met Karen at a Friday night supper. I was 13 years old, and our parents knew each other, and I fell deeply in love with her, and then proceeded after dessert to read her sexual terms from the Collins Dictionary.
You what?
I read her sexual terms.
I heard you. I'm just...
Yeah, from the Collins Dictionary. I don't know why I did that.
Was this like was this your standard like MO with...
No, I'd never done it before or since. But I was just reading out terms. Coitus, fellatio. But not in that voice. It was like, coitus, fellatio.
Oh my God.
And despite that, she still invited me on a date subsequent to that event. And it was to go and see a movie in Cape Town at a little cinema in Claremont called the Protea Cinema. I think it was before you moved to Cape Town.
Yeah.
It's been demolished. It's now a home choice, or was a home choice, because they'll go bankrupt. And it was opposite the Stanhope Bridge, around the corner. You know Claremont? Around the corner from there's that park where a guy sells dacha behind the tree, but not anymore. But he used to, but he won't anymore. But he will at some point.
I know that guy, yeah?
And my gran, I'll never forget this, she dropped me off and she had an old blue Austin Apache, which broke down twice on the way there. And that was just coming from Kenilworth. And then we had popcorn and we went in to see Pretty Woman. This is 1989.
Wow.
Julia Roberts has just come out, Pretty Woman. And I was so nervous. And I remember at some point, I can remember the tiles, Rob, the white shiny tiles of that place. Walking in, and then a third of the way through, Karen Nudelman put her hand on my thigh.
I wonder what phrase she was thinking of.
And that's where I'm going to end the story.
Premature ejaculation.
No.
Really?
No, I'm not going to do to you what you did to me. I will finish the story.
Okay, good. Finish it.
Karen Nudelman put her hand on my thigh, and I blacked out. I think I don't remember anything else of that movie. But I missed all the best parts. Julia Roberts walking into the thing with all her shopping bags and saying to the woman, "You work a commission? Big mistake. Big, huge." I missed all of that.
Is Julia Roberts doing a Donald Trump impersonation?
Yeah, she was. Huge mistake. And I think what may have happened was the blood just like rushed up my thigh. But it's not what you think, because I think it actually skipped my dick and it went like all the way up my torso. But then down my arm, and then my palms, for some reason it went straight to the palms. The palms started sweating. My hands, I've only sweated twice in my hands. Once was on the top of Moses Mabhida Stadium when I was about to bungee off, and the other time was Karen Nudelman. And so I decided I'm not going to touch her hand with my sweaty hand.
Consider it.
I was social distancing as far back as 1989.
Before it was
and then my gran had snuck into the theatre.
What?
Yeah, she was, I didn't know this, but she was in the row behind me.
Watching
and
you?
At one point she whispered in my ear, "Nick, this is your opportunity, my darling." And I was like, fuck that, I'm not doing anything. And to this day, I've never seen her again or spoken. I think I spoke to her once 10 years later. And I don't think, I mean, she risked everything, Karen Nudelman, maybe. And what did she get from, she got nothing. I think she made a decision that day, Karen Nudelman.
Yeah.
And to this day, her husband, Brad, Nudelman Feinstein, or whatever the fuck his name is, has no idea when she's initiating sex. I think she just sighs like a little bit extra than usual. But he can't distinguish between that sigh and the general dissatisfaction he's become accustomed to with Jewish women, starting with his own mother, her husband Arnold didn't know when she was, I don't know, Rob, but I'm just sharing the whole story with you.
I'm glad you're giving me every detail. You are.
I'm generous.
You're incredibly generous. Wow.
What that has to do with the coronavirus, you decide for yourself, listener.
You know what? That is us checking in with each other. I think that's it's good to know where you are at, and that we are giving ourselves space for a little bit of nostalgia. But I think we can bring an end to like this first little segment. We know how we are now. I think we should move into part 2 of this podcast, Nick.
Let's do that.
What's happening in the country? There was a great story about Stella Dlamini Abrahams going out to lunch. You must have seen that, right?
I heard about it.
So she's Minister of Telecommunications and the Post Office or something. And
yes,
she went out for essential services in inverted commas and then stopped off at Mduduzi Manana's house and had lunch. And then he took a picture.
Who's that?
Mduduzi Manana is a disgraced member of the executive committee of the ANC. He was convicted of assaulting a woman at a nightclub, I think 2018, speak under correction. But so she decided to break lockdown, go have lunch with a group of people where they were not observing social distancing. And then he took a picture of it and posted it on the internet. So obviously there was a huge furore about it. Opposing parties got involved. The EFF spokesperson Vuyani Pamba laid a criminal complaint, and this is my favorite part. Umzile Van Dam of the DA said that Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to censure Stella, because she's now been censured, whatever that means.
I know what it means.
What does it mean?
Well, she got exposed in public, but at least she was wearing pants, and then the president gave her a dressing down, not a dressing gown, and then made her say sorry in public, and then took her pocket money away for a month.
Good. That's exactly what happened. So Pumzile said it was better than nothing, but she added, we cannot praise a fish for attempting to move a fin in order to swim. That's exactly what I said. What does that mean? What is it with South African politicians and the fucked up metaphors they constantly use?
Wasn't there someone else who recently said, why do dogs bark at cars they have no intention of driving?
Who said that? That's great. I love that.
I think it was the Minister of Transport.
It's a bloody good question, actually. What are you barking at, asshole dog? I mean, otherwise, I think our ruling party they're doing pretty well under the circumstances.
Before I forget, speaking of people being arrested or getting into trouble for being in public, my friend Neville was arrested.
What did he do?
In Muizenberg. He let the dog out for a poo. The dog needed the poo, not him. And then he was walked across the road to watch the dog. I don't know exactly where the dog was pooing. Might have been like a little open.
Well, these are the kind of details that an investigative journalist would find out before bringing.
I'm going to.
Okay.
Sorry, but I can tell you, he was out there in his underpants watching the dog poo.
Why was
when
he
was
in his
arrested?
Underpants. So it looked like he was going to have.
It was like early in the morning. No, he wasn't. He didn't have any toilet paper. Maybe it ran out in Muizenberg. I don't know. The spa was raided by gangsters. And anyway. He got arrested for breaking lockdown.
You're kidding me. So he went to jail?
He went to jail for 3 hours.
3 hours?
In his underpants.
Like that is...
And there were actually 4 gang members in the cell with him. And then they offered him some food because they were handing out food parcels to the poor when they were arrested. And he said... no thanks.
Okay. I'm not sure I believe everything in that story.
However, the last part's not true, but the rest is entirely true.
But that is great because that's a very interesting story that we picked up on the BBC recently about gangsters on the Cape Flats calling a ceasefire to deliver food parcels to people on the Cape Flats. So I think that's a great idea. Let's play that clip. Should we play that clip?
The pandemic has helped bring some communities together and even led to some unlikely alliances. In South Africa, a truce has broken out in the notorious gang-ridden townships around Cape Town. Rivals have stopped their turf wars and are using their drug delivery networks to bring food to poor households. South Africa is currently in the middle of a lockdown and many people are struggling to buy basic necessities. Andrew Harding has this report.
This is the second one because we had to do 6, right? It was 2.
Food parcels being loaded for delivery by some unexpected volunteers, the most notorious gangsters in South Africa. For decades, drug gangs like the Americans and the Clever Kids have terrorised the windswept plains outside Cape Town.
13 people were killed in 48 hours.
Following the killing of 11 people over the weekend.
25 people have been murdered in Cape Town over
These streets are some of the most dangerous in the world. But the virus and a nationwide lockdown have changed some people's priorities.
I got a phone call from 2 different gang leaders, both saying, Andy, I've never asked you for anything, but we're starving.
This is Andy Steele-Smith, an Australian pastor who now works with the local gangs.
And I just thought, hey, if these guys are starving, they're at the top of the food chain. The rest of the community is going to be in serious strife.
And so, remarkably, rival gangs have started working side by side to deliver food to the communities they usually terrorise. And they're drawing on their own particular set of skills.
They're the best distributors in the country. They know how to distribute things, hey? They're used to distributing other white powders.
I think that's a very good point that he made there. Their distribution network is particularly highly developed.
Yep.
For obvious reasons.
But still, they're distributing things and they know everybody. Lord God, I just come before you and I give you glory for this day, for the sun, for the safety that you're giving us.
A group prayer for the American gang before they set off.
Thank you.
I should mention that because of the lockdown, it's not me holding the microphone. I'm in Johannesburg while producer Karen Schoonby is doing the hard work.
Which I think is just lazy reporting, to be honest, from my point of view. Yeah. If it was you would have been in there. I'm also wondering...
It's lazy, not to mention cowardly.
Cowardly. Unashamed cowardice.
Yep.
So what does the community make of the gang's new strategy? There's relief for sure that a ceasefire has taken hold.
We rely on one another to help each other, yeah? Even if it's gangsters, even if it's people who don't, it's not gangsters, but we rely on each other just to help one another, because if that people don't have something, we have to help them. And that's what we are based on, yeah.
I like how she quickly corrected herself when she called them gangsters. And then very quickly said, well, they're not gangsters, because I have a feeling one of those gangsters was standing close to her while she was being interviewed.
It sounds a lot like the behavior of my middle child.
Yeah?
He spends most of the day terrorizing his baby sister and just being a general pain. And he runs around sometimes threatening violence to both of his other siblings with various things. And then at the end of the day, sometimes he'll just come and give me like a little hug and like, I love you, Dad. And I'm like, oh, that's just so heartwarming. And then he'll be like, okay, can I watch now? Can we get ice cream? That's no different.
He's basically gaslighting you and your whole family, just like the Americans are gaslighting the Cape Flats.
Well, let's hear. Can we have our correspondent? Can we hear from our correspondent on the Cape Flats?
Yes.
Maybe that's what we should do.
Yes, I think we can. So we, as a proper investigative journalists that we are, we contacted some friends of ours, comedians who live on the flats, to get their input on what this is all about. And we're going to be hearing, first of all, from Keenan Surf.
The whole Cape Flats area has gone very quiet. Like, there's no shootings, there's no drug dealings. The streets are very much empty. there isn't gangsterism per se happening. A lot of people are just sad and scared. Sad that I took a virus to bring like peace, and scared obviously because of the actual virus itself. There was protesting against the police, against the lockdown, but that only lasted like 2 days because the police like spoke to people and make them see the severity of this. I do hope that this amount of peace can continue.
So that's Keenan Surf reporting to us live from deep in the Cape Flats. When I say live, I mean it's a voice note that he sent earlier. But then I asked Kenwyn Davids, another comedian who also lives on the flats, to get his input on it, and quite a different perspective.
There's no ceasefire. There was just gunshots at last night, according to my sources, so to speak. There is word on the street about these things, but the food parcels and everything they do, I can tell you now that the food parcel things, it's nothing new. The gangs have been doing that for years, but nothing comes for free. The gangsters actually do a lot of work in the community with regards to feeding the poor and things like that. But like I said, it doesn't come for free.
So yeah, that's Kenwyn Davids, a little bit more cynical and probably a little bit closer to the truth in terms of what is the, I suppose what the gangs have been up to for quite some time. I mean, maybe there isn't. I don't know. I guess the cynic in me is going, yeah, I mean, all of a sudden these gangs that have been tearing these communities apart for decades are now being incredibly altruistic. Really? I don't know. That was a weird, almost dinosaur noise you made there, Nick.
Chewbacca-like.
Yeah, very Chewbacca-like. Did you see the story about the mistake that News 24 made in a story that they posted about Bill Gates?
No, I missed that.
So they posted this story where they incorrectly or where they said that Bill Gates was going to trial vaccines in Africa. That was Bill Gates's plan. And or it was Ian 24.
Was it not a French or some doctor somewhere who mistakenly said that?
No, those were French doctors who on national television said the same thing. But then...
Oh, I see.
I don't know, News 24 or whichever this news source was. I think it was News 24. They said it was Bill Gates said a similar thing. And South African Twitter lost its shit. And Trevor Noah started getting death threats because he has recently interviewed Bill Gates, and they did that big charity tennis match.
Yep.
And people went like batshit crazy about this. And you can check on there's a tweet that Trevor posted a couple of days back. Now I see why I've been getting death threats for interviewing Bill. Said on Saturday, News 24, on Saturday we published a story about philanthropist Bill Gates' support for SA with COVID-19. We wrongly reported that Gates wants to test a vaccine in Africa. This is false. The Gates Foundation will support SA with testing kits and research. We apologize for the mistake. So even after they then reported that this was a mistake and Trevor said, I'm getting death threats, then you scroll down from that tweet and like the first one there is, when you sold your soul to get there? What dead threats when airports are shut down? How will they get to you? Angiti Ramaphosa waited for you and Bill, in inverted commas, to finish whatever you both came to do here, then called for lockdown. Don't act like you don't know what your buddy Bill Gates is up to. Trevor, don't be dramatic. You want to act holy now for selling your soul to the devil? Money is the root of all evil. I'm saying that's after now it's been reported as false news, and people, they like latch onto it. They want, someone must go down.
Yeah. What is it with conspiracy theories and in these times that people want to latch onto every available... What is your favorite conspiracy theory you've heard at the moment, Rob?
At the moment, oh my goodness. David Icke was recently quoted as saying that. Actually, let's listen to it. We've got the clip. Let's hear what he just said about 5G.
5G is a weapon. It's used by the military. Do you know these 5G millimeter wave technologies are used to scatter crowds?
Okay, so 5G is going to be weaponized against us potentially.
Yeah, they worked out the frequencies of various emotions, including rage and what have you. And basically, they can play across a community and it starts to have an effect. And it starts to build rage, it starts to build anger. There are going to be boxes broadcasting 5G, this weapon, down every street. Broadcasting like on the lamp standard outside your children's bedroom and stuff. Broadcasting this stuff. There's no way you'll be able to go where you won't be in a field of 5G.
I want to know how this guy got to where he got. I mean, aside from the fact that he thinks there's like 5G guns out there that is dispersing crowds.
Oh yes, there's the Illuminati are lizard. They're descended from lizard-like people, and the royal family, for example, Bill Clinton, Queen Elizabeth is a lizard.
Well, I mean, obviously she's a lizard, but that's
Lizzie.
that's from because of her name and generations of
But
inbreeding.
that's he also believes the moon is not actually a moon; it's a hollowed out spacecraft that is spying on us,
like the Death Star.
Yeah.
Well, in the current kind of zeitgeist, that would kind of make sense, I guess.
As I was listening to that recording, I also thought, we have a general feeling of dis-ease. Anybody who's spent their whole day on the internet will feel that. But I don't know, imagine 50,000 years ago when you were sitting around the fire, seeing eyes in the dark of a saber-toothed tiger, Rob.
Yeah.
Would you perhaps also have had a feeling of dis-ease in those times?
Probably.
So what does the actual science say about 5G?
The radiation watchdog group say it's not a problem. I mean, look, maybe they're being paid by the cell phone companies, but
the lizards are paying them.
The lizards are paying them, and lizards need good reception. But so do we. So do we, especially at this moment in time. But that conspiracy theory has nothing on this guy. This is he's a Australian dude. He's an anti-vaxxer, and he believes viruses don't actually exist.
Hey, I've had quite a few questions over the last few weeks, so I'm making this for my friends to clear a few things up. First and foremost, something you should know, you cannot catch a virus. And why can't you catch a virus? Because it's impossible.
That is science right there, my friend.
Yep.
You can't catch a virus. Why? Because it's impossible.
So why is it impossible to catch a virus? A virus is alive. Is a virus a living thing? So how is it that people think that you can catch something that is not alive?
Sorry, what?
Now, I know a lot of people are genuinely concerned, so that's why I'm making this, to hopefully cure some of the unnecessary fear and stress. And if you are feeling that, it's because you're causing it for yourself.
Your fault. Just to be clear, it's your own fault.
And I did make this video to help to bring some common sense and start relieving some of that fear and stress. So I won't go too far into what's really going on with this worldwide pandemic.
You could hear, by the way, he said pandemic. That was in inverted commas, right? Pandemic. And who's verifying these deaths? These deaths are just, what do they call them? Trauma actors.
Yeah.
By the way, who's verifying these deaths? Like, who's actually counting these deaths? And who's actually verifying that the deaths that do occur aren't from any standard flu, which, by the way, flus kill 500,000 to 1 million people every year. Every year. it only affects the weak, and if it's not a natural virus that's happening within your own body for beneficial purposes, the only way you can get that is to have an injection. So instead of thinking you're doing the right thing by using all the correct words like COVID-19 and self-isolating and social distancing, and instead of staying indoors like a self-indulgent cactus, washing your hands like it's going out of fashion and humping doorknobs.
I don't understand the humping doorknobs part. Who's humping doorknobs in this scenario?
And dictating to other people what they should be doing with their lives when perhaps they're just immune to media. So guys, if you're doing that, then you're not actually helping anything. What you're really doing is you're laying down, you're bending over, you're spreading your legs, and you're letting the long arm of the system get itself shoulder deep inside of you.
Woo! That escalated quickly towards the end there.
Yep.
Shoulder deep. That's a particularly Australian way of looking at things. We are not immune to them. We have our very own South African crazies out there. You saw the cotton bud guy?
Oh,
hey?
Yes.
I suppose this is the difference between what's happening in the rest of the world and right here and right now. Is if you spread ridiculous stories like this man did, who starts his video with a cotton bud stuck up his nose and then proceeds to tell people that you should not get tested for corona because the cotton buds, the earbuds that they're giving you, have corona in them as well. Check this guy.
Good morning, fellow South Africans. Goeiemorgen. I'm about to give you the...
Stop right there, guys. Stop right there. I mean, that gives it away already. Okay?
I'm about to give you the most important message that you've ever heard in your entire life that could potentially save your life. The South African government tomorrow is sending 10,000 people door to door with the police to test you for the disease known as COVID-19. Do not, under any circumstances, allow them to test you. There's a possibility that the swabs are contaminated with COVID-19. If they stick the swabs into your mouth and up your nose, there's a strong possibility that you will be contaminated.
So he got arrested. That's what happened to that guy.
I've got a question, Rob. We have a correspondent, and maybe an interesting time to bring him in. There's all this question of conspiracy theories. Is this a virus? How does it work? Testing of the vaccine. This is somebody who has been testing therapeutic vaccines for a living. Do you think we should try and get him on the line?
Who is this guy?
Shall I do a quick introduction? Well, this guy is somebody I've known for probably about 25 years. How old am I, Rob?
44? I'm just saying that because that's
basically,
how old I am.
he came at one point, I think he'd studied at Oxford. He was, let me just tell you what he did at Oxford University.
You're Googling him
I did
now.
Actually.
You've known him for 20 years and you're Googling his bio, Nick.
He did the first description of the alternative pathway of immunologic macrophage activation, which became known as the M2 macrophage phenotype. Rob.
I love that shit. I love this guy's work. Was that the first album?
That's the second album. The first album actually did very well as well.
Yeah, but like early stuff is very good. But I'm impressed with how he dealt with that difficult
After being a Rhodes Scholar, he came back and then he decided he needed to take, I don't know what it was. I think he was burnt out, so he decided to work for my dad.
Mushrooms.
Jaime the Potter, right, on the mountain. He may or may not have taken mushrooms.
Really?
But he actually, my dad said no. He's here.
He's here.
Dr. Michael Stein.
He's on the line with us.
Hi.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
He is, Rob, he is currently the CEO of Velo Therapeutics, a cancer immunotherapy company developing neoantigenic-coated oncolytic viruses as therapeutic vaccines. He knows a lot about vaccines.
You nailed it.
Concept album.
Yep. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Mike, my first question to you is, why did you agree to speak to us? Surely you have more important things you should be doing right
Because
now.
I've known Nick a long time, and he's a brilliant guy. So any opportunity to talk to Nick, and a friend of Nick is a friend of mine.
I've paid him in rands.
Thank you. What are you doing now, Mike? What's happening there for you in terms of this virus?
Well, yeah. So I'm in Oxford in the UK, which is where we live, and we are actually just reaching the plateau now of the peak. I spoke to a GP friend of mine in Oxford that he's seeing about 5 to 10 new COVID cases a day. In an area south of Oxford, which is sort of represents a community of about 65,000 people, and they feel that they've now sort of got it under control. There are enough intensive care beds available within the catchment area here, but Oxford's blessed with a very, very strong teaching hospital and very sophisticated setup. So nationally, London's been hit very hard, but again. They've moved fast. They've got opened up enough intensive care beds. The issue with this virus, you guys are probably aware, is it's not so much, the vast majority of us are going to get a very mild version. I've almost certainly had it. It swept through my kids' school about three weeks ago now, and he had my 8-year-old had very typical symptoms, which was a fever and tummy ache. You get what's called a mesenteric adenitis with the virus. The virus doesn't just target the lungs. It has receptors on 4 organs: the lungs, the heart, kidneys, and intestine. But the major target is, of course, the lungs. That's the one that's really affecting people. That's also the route of entry, which is why it's affecting that organ most significantly. But it certainly can affect the gut and heart and kidneys too, depending on your particular immune makeup. But so UK's probably reaching the peak. I mean, it looks like our numbers are starting to plateau. People are starting to get a little bit more relaxed. They're feeling a little bit more like, okay, we now know what this thing is about. We know that somewhere between 1% and 5% of people who get infected are going to need critical care. That's the problem we face. The problem we face is not, as I said, the vast majority of us are going to get very mild illness. I had a bit of a fever, the classic cough. After 4 days after my kid got it, within a day I was fine. And then my wife got it the following day. She got she was feeling a bit flu-y. Within 12 hours, she was also fine. And we've all remained completely well, but in lockdown. So the whole country is still in lockdown. We've been in lockdown a couple of weeks, and it's clearly helping. South Africa went early, so I think you guys are should get on top of this much quicker. Your numbers are much, much better than ours, and we've got thousands of people dead already. And many more thousands are still going to die. But if you get on top of it quickly, then prepare. I think that's the key here, guys, is getting systems up and running that we've never had to do before. And that's what you're doing by locking down. You're really buying time to sort of get everybody prepared, get the testing regimes done, get sort of centers set up that can do the testing, because this is going to be a long haul, right? There isn't going to be a vaccine for 12, 18 months. If you look at, for example, HIV/AIDS, that was first isolated in 1984. Okay, we've got fantastic drugs to deal with it, but we still do not have a vaccine. After billions and billions have been spent. Now, so there's no guarantee of a vaccine, although for this particular virus, I'm sure there will be. It's a much easier virus to sort of vaccinate for, for various reasons I won't go into the technicalities of, but so we can be very confident we will get a vaccine. What we can't be confident about is, whether that vaccine will last for 6 months, a year, 2 years, decades.
What do you mean in terms of it won't last? In terms of quantity, or in terms of how
we need to sort of
its efficacy in your system?
Efficacy in systems. If you look at the flu virus, we have to vaccinate. If you're a vulnerable person, you need a vaccination every year, because different strains emerge every year. We haven't been able to design a vaccine that sort of addresses what's called the core antigens of the flu virus. If we could do that, and there are trials going on for flu on that, but they've been going on for many years, we haven't yet got one that can handle all the strains of flu. So this virus, this is the what they call the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is the cause of COVID-19. COVID-19 is the name of the disease. The virus is SARS-CoV-2. That virus is mutating fast. Well, now that's good news and bad news. The good news is that it usually mutates to a milder version. I've spoken to a number of my colleagues who've got a lot of experience in virology, and so that it's certainly mutating pretty fast, but that usually means it's going to go mutate to a milder version. But the bad news means that there may or may not be strains like the are for flu every year. Those strains may emerge, even more frequently, although that's unlikely. So the bottom line is that we've got to be prepared to get, no nation in the world, rich or poor, can afford to sort of lock down for 12 to 18 months. I mean, that's like the cure will be, worse than the actual problem. And so what we've got to really do is make sure that we can let this virus go through the population, develop natural immunity to it, without overwhelming the healthcare systems. And it's all about critical care, because we know that independent of age, so people in their 40s, I was helping a friend look after a guy who's 44 years old. I think I heard one of you guys saying you're 44. There's a guy, right? There's a guy flat on his back in America, in New Jersey right now, 44, with 2 young kids and a wife, and he's in critical care, completely otherwise well, and it went into his lung. He's got the pneumonia, but he's also it went to his heart. He's got what's called an arrhythmia, atrial fibrillation, and it also went to his gut. It actually affected his gut too. So he's and he needs critical care, and without that, he probably would die. So that's the issue here, that this virus, although it kills elderly people and immunologically vulnerable people much more easily, it also does, though, put a lot of otherwise healthy people flat on their backs and can kill them. In the UK, our own Prime Minister, who I think he's 55, otherwise really relatively fit and well, has ended up 2 days in critical care, in intensive care. So that's the problem. But at the same time, the vast majority of us will have it very mild. So what you want to be able to do is make sure that you let it go through the population that are otherwise fit and healthy. They're talking about allowing the kids, they're allowing the kids back to school here in the UK first, because they're clearly getting a very, very mild illness. I don't think any child under the age of 10 or 9 has died of this virus who's otherwise well. I think there's 1 or 2 cases worldwide where there was a pre-existing medical condition, the child tragically died. But otherwise, this is really a walk in the park for the kids. I mean, my own son, he was sick for 24 hours with a bit of a tummy ache grumbling on for about another 48 hours, but he was fine. And the other one, my 5-year-old, didn't get any symptoms at all.
So is there a sense to what Sweden seems to be doing at this stage, where they've isolated the elderly and the kind of immunocompromised, but the rest of society is kind of carrying on?
That's right. And I think they could do it because Sweden's blessed with probably one of the most highly educated populations in the world. So when they say, look, social distancing, be sensible, wash your hands, etc.
They do it.
They do it, and they understand the issues, and they have very, very clear non-politicized communications from their healthcare people to the population. So they were able to get on and do it. Now, if you look at another country like Switzerland, which was overwhelmed, it has got a big border with northern Italy, of course, which is one of the epicenters for Europe. They got hit very hard very early, so they got almost overwhelmed, but they immediately handed over the control to their public health folks, who said, look, we're going to have to protect our elderly and our vulnerable. We're going to do that, and we're going to let other people, get affected. Now, they were overwhelmed. They've had a lot more deaths, but nevertheless, the fact that they had enough critical care beds meant they were able to keep their death rate about 1/5 that of Italy. By comparison, if you look at northern Italy versus Switzerland, the death rate is very different because they had real critical care capacity.
Mike,
but Sweden, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, there's a couple of, we've just been talking about conspiracy theories, people in South Africa getting very upset at thinking they've heard about vaccines being tested in Africa. That's the one question. I know you're involved somehow in that as well. And the other question is, doctors here are saying things like, there's this eerie quiet. We don't know if it's the tsunami is about to hit. but no one's sure what to make of it. And the other thing people are talking about is TB, the TB vaccine, which, according to our leading HIV expert, is nothing more than an interesting hypothesis. You did your medical training here. You diagnosed my dad's assistant with TB in a kiln.
That's right.
What's your view on all of those things?
So first, I'll start with the BCG and TB. Look, that's an interesting hypothesis. I think it's more likely that it correlates with infectious disease burden in general. So it is possible that if your immune system has been chronically stimulated and has a hyper alert element to it, there are two forms of the intelligence arm of your immune system, your army to defend against invasion by infectious diseases like bugs, like viruses and bacteria and things like tuberculosis, as well as, of course, the coronavirus. And you have something called an antibody producing arm and another arm called a cell mediated or killer cell producing arm. And those are like your James Bonds. They that you produce these big clones of cells that are designed to kill infected cells of your own body. So where you've got a virally infected cell, you've got these killer T cells that can recognize these cells have been infected and they need to be killed and got rid of before the virus can effectively co-opt them for its own purpose, which is to replicate itself. So it's a reasonable hypothesis to imagine that if you've got a lot of cell-mediated immunity ongoing anyway, that you might be a bit more resistant. So, for example, we know if you've had a recent viral illness and you've got a lot of what's called interferons, these are things that interfere with viral replication on board, then you're less likely to get another viral infection. So that's why you often don't get two viral infections at the same time, because your systems are boosted and primed for virus. And the same might apply here for infectious diseases in general. So if you've been infected with TB recently or have active cell-mediated immunity where these particular cells are sort of on hyper alert. But the problem with that is that the cells are very specific to a particular target. So you wouldn't have seen the coronavirus target, the what's called an antigen. So it might be that you've got your system can mobilize more quickly. Your immune system can mobilize against the virus. You will still have to produce those clones of T cells, those killer T cells against the virus specifically. That will always take about a week to 10 days. But if your system's really geared up, maybe, and it's a big maybe, that's a good thing. We know there's been a brilliant study out of China where they actually sort of did something called a bronchoalveolar lavage. They put sort of a bronchoscope down patients with COVID-19 who had pneumonia, and they put a bronchoscope down, filled the lung with part of the lung with water, then flushed it out, and so they could sample the cells that are present in that lung fighting that infection in real time almost. And they did it in patients who had severe disease and moderate disease and mild disease. And what was very clear from that study is that the development of these killer T cells, they're called CD8 positive T cells, that the development of those cells, those killer T cells, correlated very strongly with clearance of the disease and getting better. So I personally think, basically, I have a doctorate in immunology. I'm an MD PhD in immunology. As Nik said, trained in Cape Town, but then did my postgrad studies in Oxford. And my hunch, my feel here is that those cells, that cell-mediated immune side of your immune response is going to be absolutely critical to clearing the virus and doing well. And I suspect that what will happen is, we're doing, by the way, here in the UK and around the world, very detailed analysis of people's genetic makeup and if as to who gets severe disease and who doesn't get severe disease. And one thing that is being tested, we don't know the answer to it now, but is that what kind of immune system do you have? And there's certain molecules in our immune systems that are different amongst us. There's something called, for the cell mediated, the molecules that correlate or are very important for the generation of the cell mediated immune response, these killer cells, that's called MHC class 1, and there are at least 1,600 different MHC class 1 variants between us all. Different populations have different MHC class 1 molecules. The immune system is very variable because, of course, from an evolutionary perspective, we've been fighting off viruses for millennia. And so we've selected for, over the years, a diverse immune system, a diverse set of MHC molecules, so that we can fight different types of adversaries, viruses and bacteria, in an optimal way, so at least a part of the population will survive. So that so I suspect what's going on, and we don't know, this is just a guess, is that some of us will have a particular MHC or a particular makeup of our immune system that is vulnerable to this virus, and at the same time it might correlate with the amount of receptor that we have in our lungs and our hearts and our gut and our kidneys for this particular virus. So it'll be the interplay between our immune systems and how good we are at clearing viruses in general, how good we're clearing this particular one, and how much receptor, how much binding we have of that virus. The other huge variable, of course, is the initial dose of virus that you get, as to how severe the illness will be. And that's almost certainly the reason why the healthcare workers in the early stages, now they're all using something called PPE, personal protection equipment, but in the early stages, the docs were doing really badly. They were getting severe disease, and a number of doctors have died in the UK that I know of, probably because they didn't have any PPE. They were getting close to patients and therefore got a big dose. But I suspect the ones that, so it's going to be those, in my view, those three factors: the amount of virus, the initial infectious dose, how primed your immune system is, and how good it is in particular recognizing this particular virus, depending on your MHC molecules, and then also how much your own innate sort of ability to bind that virus, how much receptor you've got, something called the angiotensin converting enzyme receptor, ACE, the ACE receptor that you've got in your lungs to bind it, which then allows the virus, of course, to infect you and infect the cells.
Wow.
So answering the two questions particularly about BCG, I think that's not necessarily just about BCG. I think that's just a disease, an indicator of disease burden. For example, the UK, they no longer use BCG. I was vaccinated with BCG, as we all are in South Africa. The United States isn't. But again, that could correlate with just the fact that, look, people in the United States and in the UK get less infections and less exposed to infectious diseases. So fingers crossed, it means that people in the poorer areas, in the slum areas where, this would go like wildfire and kill a lot of people, fingers crossed, really, hopefully that will be a factor, that they are generally more exposed to pathogens, to bugs, to infectious disease, and that may help. But again, we don't know. We really don't know at this point. And then Nick asked me about the vaccine question, and then my company Valor Therapeutics is involved in that. We've come up with this idea where most people developing vaccines are targeting antibody producing cells. So in other words, they're trying to use mechanisms that get you to produce neutralizing antibodies that can block the virus from infecting cells. Now, my thought here, and the thought of our chief scientific officer, who's a brilliant immunologist, Vincenzo Cerullo, at the University of Helsinki, our joint view is that the cell-mediated immune response is going to be critical, because imagine the virus is going in through respiratory epithelium. It's not really exposed to the bloodstream at that point. It's getting infected, then gets into the blood, and that's when you want neutralizing antibody to stop it, getting elsewhere and giving you an overwhelming viremia. But our instinct is that you're also going to need very powerful stimulation of these CD8 killer T cells. And that's really what we're working on. We're working on a mechanism. Our company is actually an immuno-oncology company. It's basically trying to get the body's immune system to clear cancer cells. But in this setting, we're targeting a specific abnormal protein on cancer cells, and we've got a technology that allows you to redirect the immune system to kill cancer cells, which are abnormal cells. Here we're applying exactly the same principle, saying, well, virally infected cells are abnormal cells. They will be expressing viral protein on their cell surface, the antigen, and therefore if we can boost the cell-mediated immune response specifically to those viral targets, then we should be able to use that technology in the same way. So we're partnering we've partnered with one other company. We want to partner with as many companies as possible. The more shots on goal we've got here, the more likely we're going to get an effective vaccine. So that's the bit that we're involved with, and I'm really very motivated to just do whatever we can to help and partner up and get that going. It's an amazing mobilization of the world's medical community. It's pretty emotional. It's like it's extraordinary. We have got 500 COVID-19 clinical trials on the go right now. They're up and running, and there are hundreds more going to be coming on stream. I've got some brilliant colleagues around the world, who are doing just completely lateral thinking, like how do you address this? Some people, who are in the stem cell business, able to produce natural killer cells that may be important in clearing this virus. They've just had an approval. That's Bob Hariri from Cellularity. They've just had an approval for a phase 1 trial to see if their technology can work. Stuff like this going on all around the world. So I'm in no doubt. I've absolutely no doubt that we're going to crack this. But it will take time.
I just want to say, Mike, I love you. I've never met you, but I love you so much right now, and I am really looking forward to your next album. I love the early stuff.
It's the Macrophage. The Macrophage album.
Macrophage vaccine, killer T cells. That's your hit single.
Yeah.
Killer T cells.
And I would leave you with this: the five, what I call my 5 pillars of good health to keep your immune system in good shape. Sleep.
Yes.
Sleep.
Okay.
Sleep well. 8 hours a night. Fundamentally important to a good immune system. It's good for you. Number 2, eat a diverse diet. Right? Just eat well. Don't worry about taking probiotics. In fact, don't take probiotics unless you've been taking them for a long time. Because if you introduce probiotics into your diet acutely, you actually disrupt your microbiome, and that affects your immune system. And you actually there's been a recent study done where it shows that you get an increase in upper respiratory tract infections in elderly patients if you disrupt their microbiome. So don't start taking one, but do have a diverse diet. Eat your 5 fruit and veg. Number 3, exercise. You've got to keep exercising. In your living room, do whatever you do, but keep exercising. Number 4, mental health. Keep calm and carry on. Use apps. Do whatever you need to do just to chill out, laugh a lot. And that's why you guys are so important. Nick, Marcus, keep South Africa laughing. That is probably
You hear that, Marcus?
You guys are the best medicine for South Africa, for the world. And lastly, connect. Stay connecting. Obviously, we have to connect, like this, but stay connecting. Keep love alive. Love, and ask your partner to give you massages regularly. Reciprocate massages and have a healthy sex life, guys.
That's Mike. What a great message.
That's Mike.
What a great guy. Yes, I think we're gonna have to sign off now. That I'm really glad we connected and got to talk about this. I'd like to before we sign off finally. I think our president is doing exactly the right thing, and I'm super impressed with his statesmanship, his articulate response to the situation. He made another incredibly moving speech to the nation.
Did you feel, Rob? Did you feel, listening to him, what it might have felt like to be in the middle of the Blitz in London, turning on your wireless to listen to William Randall Churchill say, "We will fight them on the battlefield"?
It's exactly right. Oh man, let's listen to him. Cyril, take it away.
We remain strong and united and resolved as South Africans. Much is being asked of you, far more than should ever be asked. But we know that this is a matter of survival, and we dare not fail. I know we shall recover, and I also know that we shall overcome. May God bless South Africa and protect her people. I thank you.
And for just a little healthy dose of perspective, let's see in contrast what American President Donald Trump said in response to a journalist's quite important question. This is Donald's response.
The germ has gotten so brilliant that the antibiotic can't keep up with it. And they're constantly trying to come up with a new. People go to a hospital and they go for a heart operation. That's no problem, but they end up dying from problems. You know the problems I'm talking about. There's a whole genius to it. We're fighting, not only is it hidden, but it's very smart, okay? It's invisible and it's hidden, but it's very smart.
Yeah, Rob, listening to Donald Trump there, I think, yes, we're all in the same leaky boat right now, but actually, are we really? Because I think we're all in slightly different boats. And I think we can agree, listening to Cyril, that we are very fortunate to be in the boat that we're in.
Yeah.
And America, I don't think they're even in a boat. I think they're with Donald Trump in a dinghy, and everybody's basically spitting in each other's mouths to show they don't think this virus is a big thing.
Yeah. Nick, I love you, man.
I love you too, Rob.
I'll see you next week.
How do you feel now?
And now?
You feel better?
And now I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm gonna be okay.
Great. Go get that massage.